Have you ever looked blankly at somebody who said, you are codependent, you're in a codependent relationship? Because maybe way back, or maybe even now, you don't realize that that's the dynamic that you're playing out in your relationship. Even people who are aware of that concept of codependency sometimes don't recognize that they are in fact in a codependent relationship. And that's what my guest, Erin Grealy, has experienced in her own life experience, in her own journey. She is one of the co-authors of our Beyond Dependence book, and I'll just share a little bit about her background. So she is a professional support worker for disabled, guiding individuals to recognize and break free from the subtle grip of codependency. Through her writing, she helps readers uncover the unseen patterns influencing their relationships and empowers them to transform unhealthy dynamics into thriving, connecting partnerships. A keen self-development enthusiast, Erin is passionate about making complex emotional challenges easier to understand, and she does a very good job of that in her book, in her chapter. Drawing from her personal experience and deep insights, she provides a compassionate and practical approach to healing codependency. Welcome, Erin. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thanks, Crystal. Happy to be here.
Beautiful. So yeah, I'm curious to hear from you, in your own words, what prompted the topic of codependency in your chapter.
For me, I didn't realize that I had codependent relationships until I did a boundary course. And also, I didn't think that I needed to do a boundary course because I know that saying no was hard, and that was the issue for me. And so doing a boundary course, I was like, I don't really think it's going to give me anything. And doing it literally blew my mind. It was just incredible how insightful it was, and also how it showed that codependency is very subtle and it can be everywhere, not just in relationships that's easy to see. It can be everywhere, and it is. And that's what I want to focus on in my book, is that codependency isn't necessarily easy to see, and it's subtle. And so I want people to see those subtleties because they're everywhere, not just in main relationships, in work relationships, in romantic relationships, friendships, in everywhere.
It's so true, and we often don't realize it because we are so close to it. So it really helps excuse me, it really helps having somebody like you sharing with such vulnerability your story and the dynamics between the power triangle. Now, if you haven't heard about the power triangle, Erin is unpacking that in her chapter, how we move between the victim, the perpetrator, and the rescuer, and how we often glorify the rescuer, right? Like, did you want to share just one snippet around that? Because you're also sharing that in our book launch. So maybe I should mention that. So the book launches today on Friday the 11th. And we have a book launch celebration later on today, which is happening at 6:30 p.m. Sydney time. So we'll put a link in the show notes below as well. So if you are free, please join us, because Erin is going to take us through a beautiful guided visualization and journey to identify more clearly, well, am I codependent and am I a rescuer? So Erin, do you want to share just a little bit about, the rescuer?
The rescuer, yeah. I think that's where I focus in the book, around the rescuer, because the rescuer looks as though they're being very helpful, and they feel that they're being very helpful. But what they do is they save the day. So the actual rescuer, this is the definition, they save the day, one, without being asked, and two, they neglect their own needs in the process. So in doing that, they think that they're doing it for you. And if you don't ask, then you don't necessarily want somebody to save the day for you. And so they come in, and it can be so subtle. It can be things like they did something for you and you're like, that sounds nice, that's really good, thanks for doing that. And then you don't have to do that yourself. And you're like, okay, that's easy, that's better, da 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 da. Later down the track, you go, oh, I've never actually done this myself because, you know, so and so has always done that for me. So then I become reliant and dependent on that person, and becoming reliant and dependent on them then creates codependency. And that's just them being, you know, wanting to help, wanting to do things for people, but they want to do it in a way that they want to do it and in a way that they get the outcome for that person. So it ends up not being for that person. It ends up being for them to feel good that they've helped this person. So yes, that's a little bit about the rescuer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's you do such a great job in the book describing and giving examples so that we can all see each other. Oh my God, I've done that too. Especially as women, we are overgivers and want to help so much. So really reading your chapters and having it reflected back to us to think, oh my God, I do that too, will then help to create these more empowered relationships. So if that's you, if you're listening, make sure you grab a copy of our book. It is alive today. I'll just quickly share the URL here. So it's going across the screen right now. So go there, grab your copy of our book right now, and you can you can read Erin's chapter and seeing and identifying where you may be doing the same thing. Now, Erin, I'm curious about what it was like to write this chapter. Like, there's so many people who are writing a book because they want the credibility in their business, but that wasn't the primary reason why you came into this book, was it?
No, very different. So my reason was to process some grief and to create a transformation. And I know that writing in itself is very transformational and is very healing. I had no idea writing a book would be like that. But I also thought a multi-author book, I thought, is a wonderful idea, that it's not just me, it's a group of people that I'm doing something together with them, as well as somebody supporting me doing it. Because writing a book, I'm sure that many people have said, Crystal, that that's on their bucket list and they've never done it. Because who has the dedication, and also who can emotionally support those, and who can support themselves in, you know, writing and editing and all those sorts of things. Nobody can do all of that themselves, and we all start out doing it by ourselves. And that, for me, this process was about going into it with having support and having guidance.
And what would you say was, one, the most challenging, and two, the most rewarding experience or highlight? And I guess challenge can also be a highlight as long as you overcome it, right? What was your highlight, and what was the most challenging thing during this writing process?
Well, certainly the most challenging was cutting out 5,000 words.
Yeah.
So I'm way over the word. And
listeners, this is every.
words.
Sorry, Erin, to interrupt. Everyone listening, each of these authors, because it's only 4 of them, we've given them 10,000 words. Like, that's 3 chapters. This is not your normal write a 3,000 word chapter and be done and wonder why you're going over. 5,000 words over on top. So Erin has written 15,000 words and needed to cut 5,000. Like, that's a lot. And that is extremely challenging to figure out and restructure and reform. But you've done a great job, and your chapter flows so well. But I just wanted everybody to see that we're not just talking about a 3,000 word chapter. We're actually talking about a mini book within a bigger book.
And for me, when you were saying challenging, for me, cutting out things felt like I was cutting off a piece of me, like an arm, a hand, like something that was very, very useful and functional that I was getting rid of. And it was just really, really, really difficult. And that was definitely a growing a growing pain, or a growing sort of, part. And then for me, the best thing, or the best part, I'm not sure whether there's something specific. Yes, there is. There was one defining moment where there was something that I wanted to keep in the book. There was something that I wanted to keep true to how I'd written it. And Erin beforehand would have said okay to the editors and to Crystal and just sort of gone with the flow. But I was like, this is my baby. And I stood up for myself and what I'd written. And for me, that was stepping into my power.
Fighting for something that we thought maybe could be cut or said differently, and you said no, I wanted it. And we have to say, Erin, your language is very colloquial, very casual, and so there were some compromises that we definitely were making on both ends, so that it was fitting into the overall kind of style of the book. Because there's one thing, writing a solo book, and then you can be as casual, but if the voices are too different in one and the same book, it kind of loses its cohesion. So we were definitely having a little dance there around making sure that your beautiful, unique voice was maintained, whilst also ensuring that it kind of was a cohesive whole. So that was certainly my challenge and the challenge of the editor. And I think we got there, and it's beautiful. And I love that was part of your empowerment and part of you stepping beyond dependency in many respects. So a real lived experience, a real example here of what that can look like. So Erin, thank you. I'm looking forward to seeing you tonight for our launch celebration. I'm going to put the details here again. If you haven't grabbed your copy, please support us so we get to bestseller and have even more exposure for these beautiful authors and their stories, because they really are so deeply felt, so vulnerable, with so much raw wisdom, that I just, as a publisher, really want these stories to go far and wide. And sign up for our launch celebration tonight if you can join us. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for listening, and I'll see you again